everybody, and welcome to my sewing room. If you haven't been here before, my name is Rosemary of Enchanting Rosemary Sewing and Embroidery, and on this channel we just try and do some fun things, learning some sewing techniques, looking at some sewing machines, and maybe making a doll or something like that. But I try and mix it up and do some different things, including software. And this week what I thought would be fun to do would be to make a blouse, and I have this really good pattern that has a really basic cotton pullover blouse, and I bought some fabric, and this actually said in the fabric store that it was a polyester cotton blend that looks like linen, but it's not linen, but it's really thin and see-through, which is one of the things I wanted, because what I want to do is I want to put some heirloom sewing down the front of it to kind of jazz it up a little bit. And I'm always trying to tell you guys the absolute truth, because I'm not a perfect seamstress. So I wanted to do some pin tucking on it. And then when I sat down to my sewing machine with my double needle and my pin tuck foot, I realized I didn't have the right stitch plate. So there's a stitch plate that fits on your brother's sewing machine that has a little hole in it that you can feed some cording through, and it makes really nice pin tucks. And I didn't have it, so I'm gonna have to maybe go and get one from my work. We're gonna change plans. We're gonna do something different. So I think what I want to do is I want to put this in the hoop, and I'm going to put some sticky back dissolve away stabilizer on the back of it, and I'm going to show you with the stillaire how you can enter in some decorative stitches and some wing needle work and sew down the front without having to worry about getting it straight, because the hoop is going to keep it straight for us, and it's just so easy after you get all the programming in there. So let's go over to the sewing machine, and I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. Okay, so here we are in front of my stillaire sewing machine. I've got the camera turned a little bit so you can see that I've gone ahead and I put this in the hoop, and I used my largest hoop, and I've kind of laid my pattern out to know approximately how big I want this to be. But I'm not going to cut this out in the pattern yet, because sewing the embroidery stitches on it will shrink my fabric down a little bit, and then it won't fit right. So first I do the stitching, then I lay the pattern on and cut it out. And I'm using this peel and stick that I used in the last video that I did. This part peels off, and this part here is very sticky. And so what I did was, most of the time what you do with this is you put it in the hoop, and then you score this and pull it off, and it's sticky, and it'll hold your towels and stuff in place. But what I did was I peeled it completely off, and I stuck it to the back of my fabric here, the whole big piece, and then I hooped it. So it should be nice and stiff, and it'll be able to do the stitches that I want to do. And then, as I said before, I'll lay my pattern out and cut it, and then I'll wash all the stabilizer off of it. So I'm going to move this way just a little bit so I can see the screen of my sewing machine. And what I want to do is I want to go into my embroidery. And in my embroidery, I have, of course, all these different menus, but I have this menu number 5, and it's probably going to be the same menu that will be on your Luminaire and your Dream Machine, and on both of the different stillaires that are available. And if I touch this one right here, I have these stitches, and these are the stitches that are in your sewing machine. So just for a minute, I need to tell you that if you don't have a big embroidery machine and you have just a basic little sewing machine like the 950 that I used the last time, or the 700, or maybe an older machine, or even a 5100, 5200, any of the other sewing machines, you're going to have these stitches in the sewing part, and you can do them with your sewing machine. You just have to use a disappearing pin, draw straight lines, and then follow those lines, and you can kind of do the same thing we're doing this today, but we're going to do this in the hoop to make it a little bit easier. So the first thing I want to do is I want to put right down the middle of my design that I'm going to do, and I've got this hooped up so that the middle of the blouse is approximately right here. Oh, my hand isn't showing, but the middle of the blouse is approximately the side of my hoop. So I'm going to put something that will go right down the middle. And one of the ones I really like is this one right here. This is an heirloom stitch. And if I put a wing needle in there, it will create a hole right in the middle and make a really pretty star stitch. So I'm going to set that down. Then I'm going to take it and I'm going to pick it up and move it all the way over here. Then I'm going to hit the edit button, and I'm going to hit this button right here that looks like 9 little squares, and there's a plus and a minus here. The plus will make the stitches go up. The plus here will make the stitches go down. So I want to hit a plus there, and see, it just duplicated that again. So I'm going to hit it again. And it'll go all the way down to the bottom of this very easily. Then what I want to do is I want to pick out something that maybe would go pretty on the side of it. So I'm going to say okay and add, and then go back into that menu. And let's see, let's do something like, there's so many to choose from in this. Let's do something like this. I like this one. It's very pretty. And we're going to do white on white. So we're going to embroider all of this with white thread. And we're going to hit set. And then I think what I want to do is I want to flip them around the other way. So I'm going to hit edit, rotate, and they're going this way now. Let's move them over this way just a little bit. And then edit. And then we'll hit this and go plus, plus, plus. Now you can see that they're not coming out the same size. Even if I kind of move it over and move this over and line it up the best I can. This one's a little bit longer. So I could actually squish this one in by pushing the arrows in. Whoops, wrong one. Push the arrows in. Make them fit a little bit better. So let's go up to the top. So I could push another plus and put another one here, but you know what? I don't want to, because, and the reason for that is when I go to rehoop this and line this up and keep going down, because my blouse is longer than the size of my 14-inch hoop, I need a little wiggle room. I need to be able to scooch it up and scooch it down, which I'll show you when I get ready to rehoop this. So I'm going to leave some space in there. Now I want to repeat this one over on the other side. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say sideways plus like that. So now there's 2 rows. And then I'm going to hit this one here that looks like sideways 3 with a line down it, and a blade appears right here, a little knife. And I'm going to hit that knife, and now those are cut in half. So now I can put this one over here, and I can flip that around. And this one, I do want it to be fairly close to even, like that. And if I'm worried about that being even, what I could do is I could hit this, and right here, I could say, I want you to put a grid on there. And now I can kind of see you also have the option of coming up here to the top. See this hoop and the plus sign? I can kind of see a little bit better if that looks close. It's not really as close as I'd like it to be, but it gives me an idea. So I'm going to say okay. So now that's kind of like my center band. So let's do something else that'll go pretty on the side of that. So I'm going to push add and go back into this again, go into here. And I think this time what I want is I just want some flowers. So this is all just kind of a look and decide and look. There's so many pretty things that are on here. Oh, let's do these hearts. I like this one. Set that down. Put the hearts up here. Edit. That one is starting the same place as the other one. I want to try and keep this as even as possible. Oh, well, maybe that's not going to be perfectly even, but it's close enough. So there's that one. That looks really pretty. And now I want to go, okay, add, go back into here, go into here. And one of the ones I really like if I go down here far enough, are these. And you know what's funny is, I have seen these on my sewing machines for absolutely years and years, and I always thought, oh, those are nice, but what the heck are you going to do with those? They're just cross stitch is all they are. But if I take these and put them together, it's going to almost look like a cross stitch ribbon, like the ones that you could buy at the store, or even the ones that Grandma used to embroider on her tea towels. So I'm going to hit this one here and push set, edit, mirror image. It's really tiny and you probably won't be able to see it on the camera very well, but I'm going to repeat that. Oh, whoops, what did I do wrong? Plus, 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 plus. Okay, we'll leave it long. Then I'm going to lay it on its side, push plus, use my split button, cut it with a knife. I'm going to move it over this way, and I'm going to mirror image that one. And I want to put something right down the center of that cross stitch band. So I'm going to push add, and then I'm going to go into here and here, and let's put this one. Nope, cancel. I changed my mind. We're going to stick with cross stitch for this one. So we're going to go all the way back down to the bottom here. And I think I'm going to do this one. Set. And then I'm going to put it up here. Edit. Now that one definitely doesn't come out the same size, so we're going to push it back in a little bit. Yep, that works out pretty good. That's pretty. I like that. That looks really good. Okay, so we've got probably 4 different rows. I want to do it down the middle, so I'm going to say okay and add. And I'm going to go back in here again, and I'm going to choose this one. And then I will go with this one with the stars and say okay. And go right there. Edit. So now I'm gonna, you got the idea of what I'm doing, right? So I'm gonna kind of turn off the camera and I'm gonna fill up the rest of this screen till I can do this entire hoop, okay? Okay, I'm back, and what I've done is, instead of going all the way across like I was talking about doing before, I moved my stars to the center and went out. So this will be the center of my blouse right here, and then this will go this way and this will go this way. And I won't have such a big piece in the front, but I think it's going to be really pretty. But I wanted to repeat because, like I said before, my blouse is longer than the inches in my quilt. So in order to do that, I have to push this button right here. And it says move down here to the bottom. And there's a red box right here that's moving. And it gets down here to the very bottom here. And then I can say I want to put a tailor tack right there at the very corner of that. And then I'm going to come over here and choose this one and move down. See, my red box is down here, and I'm going to put a tailor tack right there. And what that's going to do for me is when I finish sewing this out and I want to rehoop, it'll help me to line it up so that it matches. But I'm also going to use the app so I get a good picture of it. But now what I want to do is I want to sew it out. And I'm going to sew it out with a very lightweight bobbin thread and a very lightweight thread on the top. This is actually a sulky bobbin thread that's not shiny. It's kind of like a cotton thread, and it should work pretty good. And then when it does this very first one with the stars, I'm going to put a wing needle in there and see what happens. And then I'll switch back over to a regular needle to do the rest. So let me put a wing needle in my machine, and then let's see what happens. Okay, so if you've never seen a wing needle before, it looks like this. It's kind of weird. It's got two little wings on either side, but it creates a bigger hole when it's embroidering on your fabric. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in. And unfortunately, I can't use my needle threader when I have a wing needle because it just doesn't work right. So I'm going to have to thread this up the old-fashioned way. Okay, I've got it threaded. You didn't want to watch me do that. That wasn't any fun at all. So I'm going to put the foot down and I'm going to push the green button and watch it start to do this. Okay, so can you see what that did with a wing needle? It kind of pushed little holes in my fabric. They made a really pretty star. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the regular needle back in there. I'm going to sew the rest of the decorative stitches on there. And then I'll show you how you can re-hoop it up and continue our border that we've created. Okay, so I have some confessions to make. I went ahead and I re-hooped this so that what I've already embroidered has been moved further up in the hoop. And then I used the app to take a picture of what I'd already sewn. So this is the part, and I don't know if you can see it, but that's the picture that the camera took to show what I've already sewn. And it ends right here. And this design that I had created, of course, was this long, so it didn't fit in the hoop. So what I had to do is I had to go back and cut some of this off. And the way you do that is you select it like this, and then go back into that app that's on your sewing machine. And remember the part that has a dotted line right there? You hit that, and then it will split it. So we're going to go down. There's a little knife right there. We're going to go down to about right here, and we're going to hit the knife, and it's going to cut it. And we're going to say okay. And then we're going to come over here. Same thing. I'm going to hit that, move the knife down to there, and we're going to cut it and say okay. And then I can select this one and hit delete. Hit this one and hit delete. And then this one still needs to be split. So I'm going to go in here, hit this button, bring the knife down to about right. That's a little bit too short, but that's okay because I don't think I need that one as long. So I'm going to hit the knife, choose this one, hit delete. Okay. So then I can move it up like this. And then I have to take the whole thing and move it so it's lined up with where I re-hooped it at. And make sure it's lined up. And those tailor tacks that I did before, I put them down here at the bottom, but I wasn't thinking that I was going to pull the whole design up, so I needed them at the top so I could put them on the top. And then once I have that lined up, and I'm actually going to hit this button up here at the top, the magnifying glass button, so I can kind of see a little bit better that I've got it pretty much lined up. And then I'm going to say okay, and then maybe move this one down just a tad. Oh, it won't let me move it down, so I'm going to go back into here and maybe squish it together just a little bit and then move it down there. That'll work. That looks pretty good to me. Okay, so the part that I wanted to show you about the tailor tacks is what you do is you say okay, and then I'm going to move the camera a little bit so you can see a little bit more what's on here. Hit embroidery, and you'll see that there is, I was afraid of that. Oh, see this button right here? If I hit that and hit the corner, it'll line up with that tailor tack that's down there, but I want it to line up here, so I'm going to hit this one. And then what I'm going to do is we're going to give me a minute so I can kind of line this up so you can see what I'm doing. My foot has lined up with the corner of my design where it stopped right here, and it's showing that lines, and we got white on white thread here, so it's hard to see, but it actually, the needle is coming down right in the corner of that design. So then when I hit the other button that comes over to this side, it shows that it lines up with this one as well. So I know that I have it pretty much exactly the way I want it. I'm going to hit the center button and see that it lines up with that center piece. So it looks like it's going to line up pretty good, and that worked out all right, even with all the work I had to do to make it fit in the hoop. So all I'm going to do now is put that wing needle back in there so I can do the wing needle work, and I'm going to sew it. Okay, so my machine is sewing this out, and I have to say again, I'm kind of sorry that I did this white on white because you can't really see it, but I will get up a close-up and show you what it looks like. It lined up pretty good. There is something though that I forgot to tell you, and I'm going to just stop the machine for a minute and move it over here. And I feel really bad that I forgot to mention this. But when you're in here, if you hit layout, and see this button right here that looks like a spool of thread that's basically blue? When it's off, every single time you finish just one of these little sections, it's going to stop. And then it's going to say, finished, change the color. Well, we've got it all, it's all black. We want to keep on going. We don't want to have to keep stopping every time we do this. So there's two things I'm going to do. I'm going to go up here on the top where it says layout, and I'm going to hit that blue spool, and that blue spool will make it so it'll keep on sewing without stopping. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here and see this part right here that has a picture of a scissor. I'm going to hit that. And I'm going to say, don't cut this. So when it's blue, it's going to cut it. When it's not blue, it's not going to cut it. That way it won't stop and cut the thread every time it moves to the next one, and it'll keep on going. And that'll make it a little bit less frustrating for you. So let's go back over here to the sewing machine. A lot of moving back and forth. Say okay and start it back up again. And I'm going to keep on sewing that. I'm going to change, when I get to the end of the stars here, I am going to have to stop the machine myself because I told it to keep on sewing, and I'm going to take that wing needle out and put the other needle back in and finish doing the rest of the design, and then I'll show you what it looks like. So here's my design already sewn out. And you can see the white on white looks really pretty. I haven't even washed the stabilizer off. When I wash the stabilizer off, you'll be able to see some of the more detail with this kind of a see-through like fabric. And right here is where I joined the hoop stitches from one hoop to the next. I can't find where it connected, so I'm pretty proud of myself. I actually got it to connect pretty good without you being able to see where. Actually, this part right here is where that tailor tack was, so you can tell that that's where it kind of came together. Okay, so I've rinsed this out, and it looks pretty nice. I really like the way it looks, but it also looks like it could use a little bit extra. I want to kind of go a little bit wider in my design that I'm doing on the blouse. So I've been thinking about this, and I think what I want to do is put some insertion lace on it. And I'm going to put this black down so you can see what I'm talking about. This is an insertion lace. It's usually bought in shops that sell heirloom, but any kind of a flat lace will work. And this one in particular has little holes in it that you can run a piece of ribbon through after you've sewn it in. So I'll probably find some really white ribbon that I can put in there after I've done this. But I want to show you how I'm going to put this on here. I put a little bit more of that sticky back stabilizer on the back of this. I don't know how many times I'm going to end up rinsing this before I'm all done, but I want to make sure that it's really stable and it doesn't pucker. And I'm going to lay my lace down on right up against where my last row of stitching was. And then I'm going to put it, I've got my wing needle in my machine, and I'm not sewing on the Stillaire anymore. I have this on my 2500 brother now, and I'm going to put the foot down so the lace is in place, and then I'm going to choose an heirloom stitch, and I'll put a little picture of what this stitch is up in the corner of the screen, but it's in your heirloom menu, and it's number 308, which is basically what they call an entre-deux stitch. And then I'm going to just start stitching with my wing needle right along the edge of this lace. And again, since I'm doing white on white, it's a little bit hard to see. And I'm going to do all the way down the front, the side of the decorations I've already sewn, and then I'm going to come up to the other side and sew all the way down the other side. So when we're all done, I'll show you how we take the fabric out from behind this. Okay, so this is probably the hardest part you're going to do on this. I've got this turned upside down. You can see that I have, let's see if I can pull this up a little bit. This is the sticky rinse away stabilizer, and I could do this after I rinse this off or before, and I'm going to do it before right now because it actually makes it a little bit stiffer. And what I want to do is I've got a little tiny pair of scissors, and I want to stick the scissors into my fabric and cut the fabric away. It's a little bit hard when you first get started. And I'm putting my scissors right up against that stitching I did, but I'm not cutting the lace underneath. So you have to make sure that as you cut, you slide your scissors in between the fabric and the lace. And I have in the past accidentally cut the lace, and then I have to go back and make a stitch to close it back up again. But if you can see, there's the lace underneath on the right side of the blouse, and this is the fabric and the stabilizer that's on the back, and it's slow going with a little tiny pair of scissors, but I want to remove that fabric from behind that. And then once I do one whole side, then I'm going to turn this back this way, and I'm going to do the other side, holding it up and cutting right up against those stitches that I had done, so I don't have any raw edges that are going to leave a frayed edge. And if you're right up against this, all the stitching that's there, you won't get a frayed edge on there. So that's a little bit slow going, but in the end, I'll flip it over and I'll show you how pretty it is on the other side. Okay, I finished cutting out from behind that, and this is the front part, and I've got it on a black background so you can see where I've cut the fabric from behind it. And I really like the way it came out. It really was a little bit of extra that was added to all the other embroidery I already did. And remember at the beginning of this video, I said I wasn't going to do pin tucks because I didn't have the stuff. Well, I went to work and I got the stuff. So I want to do some pin tucking now. So I'm going to take this and lift it up. And I want to show you, this is a pin tuck foot. This is made by, this is a brother pin tuck foot. And you can see that it has these little like welts going down the middle of it like this. And that's where it pulls up the fabric and creates a pin tuck. And this has got several little grooves in it. And then this is the little plate I was talking about. It has a hole here and a notch here, so you can feed a thick thread down through here and then out through here, and it holds it in place. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this. This is a 12 weight Gutermann, and it's not as heavy as like a cording, but it's heavy enough that will add some substance to my pin tucks. I'm going to put that in there. And the other thing I'm going to do is you'll notice that I taped a straw to my sewing machine. And the reason why I did that was I discovered that as I started to sew through this cording plate, the thread still backed up on top of it and sewed together and basically sewed my blouse to my sewing machine. So what I did was I took this thick thread and I fed it through the straw, and that holds it where I want it to be held, and it worked beautifully. So that looks like a crazy idea, but it worked. So that's what I was after. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put my pintuck foot on my sewing machine. And I have a double needle on there, and it's a double needle that is 1.6. The 1.6 is the distance between, here, let me do this with a stylus. The 1.6 is the distance between the two needles, and the 80 is, it's a size 12, basically universal needle, and that'll work for what I'm trying to do. Then I'm going to put 2 threads through both of these needles, and I use just a lightweight thread. And the next thing that I want to do, I've got that thread caught in there, is I want to tighten my tension up. I want to go up probably to about a 7 for my tension on here. And then what you're going to do is you're going to just put this thread, this thicker 12 weight thread, right down the middle, and take your blouse and put it here, and these other little pin tucks will hold one that you've already done. So I already did one here, so I'm going to feed it through one of these other ones, and then I'm going to feed this right down the middle, and we're going to cross our fingers and pray and start to sew. And this will keep this straight, so I have parallel lines by keeping this other pin tuck inside one of these wedges here. Almost done. And I'll hit my scissors. And then I'm going to reach in with my little scissors and cut that thread. Oh, yay. Okay, so I don't know if you can see it, but I have 2 rows of pin tucking on there, and those came out pretty good. I like them. And the cording that I sewed is been pulled up into that little seam. That's what creates the pin tuck that's not quite so flat. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do probably maybe 4 pin tucks on this side and 4 pin tucks on that side. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay the pattern out on top of this and cut it out. So I'll be back and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so here is the front of my blouse with the pin tucks and the decorative stitching that we've sewn and the insertion lace that's on there. I'm very pleased with the way it came out. A couple of my pin tucks are a little bit crooked, but I'm not going to stress about that. It does probably need a really good pressing. And I'm also going to rinse it one more time because it still has some stabilizer on the back of it before I press it out and sew it. But I wanted to show you this center star that's right here is the center of my design that I've created. And I'm going to fold it right down the middle of that center star stitch, which is right here. And then I'm going to take it, I've also obviously got some threads here that need to be trimmed too. Once I've got that folded exactly down the middle of that, I'm going to take my pattern from my blouse, and you know, if you've ever made a blouse before, you know that there's a center place on fold arrow right here, and so we are going to put that on there so that that entire design, front design on this blouse is right there. And this blouse has actually got another piece that goes down here that makes it a little bit longer, and pin it. And then I'm going to cut the blouse out the same way you would cut out any blouse. And I don't want to turn this video into how to make a cotton blouse video, mostly because it's already too long, and hopefully you already know how to cut out a blouse. So I'm going to go ahead and pin this and cut it out and sew it together, and then I'll come back and I'll show you what it looks like all finished. Okay, so here's my blouse completely finished, and I'll back up so you can see the full blouse in a minute. But I wanted to show you that besides the decorative stitching and the heirloom insertion lace and the pin tucks, when I got to the end of the blouse as I finished it up, I put some the entredot stitch around the facing where it said just to do some top stitching, and I did it again down at the bottom when I put the hem in. Oh, and I also, if you can see, I did it on the end of the sleeves where, again, it just tells you to turn it over and top stitch it. And I thought, oh, well, let's do some of that heirloom stitching with the wing needle in the sleeves as well. So I just kind of continued the whole idea of the heirloom stitching throughout my blouse. Here we are. Here's the whole blouse from a distance. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. I hope you learned a little bit about heirloom sewing, and I just like to say to you thank you for watching. Subscribe, comment, like, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.